This week, we explore the topic of cultivating connection with the divine. Hi, everyone. Nice to see you. Hi, Sebi. Good morning, my dear. Lovely to have you here. And so this month at Art of Alignment, as you know, we're continuing with our theme of feeding your soul, feeding our souls. And I decided to do this month because I want to use this time in December to really reflect and to cultivate a deeper relationship with going inward and taking some time for reflection and contemplation. I always like to do this at the end of the year. So to continue on our journey and our essence, the journey and essence about spirituality and introspection, it seems to me that connecting with the divine brings up a quest for meaning, our personal quest for meaning, our purpose, and also a connection with something that is greater than ourselves. So for me, divine connection is an ever-present force that guides and enriches my life. And, as we develop our awareness around deep listening, around deep sensing, this teaches us that no matter what's going on in our lives, we have the potential for change and understanding. Inner reflection gives us a space to ponder and also a space to grieve. Reflection gives us an opportunity to open doors to deeper senses and to our mind as well. So when we take the time to sense and feel in our bodies, when we take the time to sense and feel in our bodies, emotions arise. And this is where connecting to a higher source becomes a pathway toward spiritual health. Hello and good morning, Anali. Wonderful to have you here this morning. I am delighted to have you join us for our continuation on the topic of divine connection. So, what I've witnessed over time in my work and within myself is that when I slow down, when I listen with loving attention, I actually become more vulnerable. There's kind of a spacious silence that arises within me, and I feel whole, even though I may be having and experiencing big emotions. Excuse me. So slowing down gives me the chance to both feel and witness how I am feeling. Recognizing the importance of silence and stillness in our lives is part of the path toward divine connection. And I'd like to take a moment to practice sitting together in silence and slowing down right now. So if you'll join me, I want to invite you to find a comfortable place, sit comfortably, get comfortable, and if it's possible for you to go ahead and close your eyes. First, take a few deep breaths and settle into your body. Feel yourself settling into your body. Feel your breath moving through your body. Remain aware of the sounds around you. And at the same time, notice the silence and the stillness that is here. let the silence and stillness soothe you as if it were a warm blanket. Slow everything down. You are aware, you are present and relaxed. And just take a couple of deep, conscious breaths where you are right now. Notice your body. Notice sensations that might have arisen. And very simply, in this space, slowly return to your center. Come back to your center. And when you're ready, you can gently float your eyes open. So thank you for those of you who are showing up right now. Solutions provided. Good morning. So glad you're here. Good morning, Janet. Good morning, Leanne. Good morning, Mary Beth. Welcome, welcome. So I just did a little check-in exercise if you just jumped on, so that we might bring ourselves to center and to really tap into the power of silence and stillness. And we do this in relationship to connecting with divine grace, because when we allow a sense of silence, when we allow for stillness to be embodied, what that means is simply being in our bodies, in silence, in stillness, we can arrive at a place where we are listening with more than our ears, but we listen with our senses, with our hearts. We expand from the inside out. And so there's a question here. Can you talk to pain in our body and how we can tune into that for higher awareness? Yes, I can certainly talk to that. I'm going to integrate your question into my class today. So thank you so much for your question. Actually, what we just did in terms of tapping into our bodies, in becoming still, in sensing what's occurring in your body, what starts to develop as we practice this more consistently is that as you calm your body down and you become quite aware of the sensations in your body, our next step potentially is to start to befriend those sensations, to start to befriend the pain, what we're feeling, what we're sensing. Because anytime that we work on pushing things away, what seems to happen, and this is actually a neurobiological reaction, is that the pain either augments in the body or we push it aside and it shows up in different ways in our lives. So either way, we want to be able to bring ourselves to a place of stillness, of centering, so that we can actually feel what is occurring in our bodies. And for a lot of people, that's very scary, because a lot of people have a lot of pain in their bodies, in their minds, in their hearts. So my invitation for you this week in our class is to really start to develop a higher sense of connection with what is beyond you. In your body, of course, as you tap in, you come into silence, present awareness, we sit, we connect, and then to know and to connect with what I call divine grace, so that you might start to develop your own healing mechanisms. We all have the power to heal ourselves. So I wanted to continue with this relationship of how, in connecting with divine grace, how learning to slow down and to check in with ourselves is definitely one way for us to become the healers in our lives. That there is, in addition to our own healing mechanisms, a connection to a higher power, an invisible force in the universe, in the floating possibility of the universe, that assists us in connecting to something that is greater than us. Because when we do that, there's a sense that we all belong, that we're not on our own in our suffering. We become more aware of our suffering and of the suffering of others. And that brings us closer together. So learning to slow down, essentially, it will presents us with opportunities to be in better control of what we can control in our lives. And what we can control in our lives a lot of the time is our state of beingness. So how are you being with this discomfort, with pain? How do you relate to what arises and occurs in your body? When we slow down, when we check in, we can take our internal temperature. You can figure out if you're feeling uncomfortable in this space right now, or if your emotions are out of control. And when you can tap into what is occurring in this moment, this is where the change occurs. It's possible for us to shift our state. It's possible for us to change in the moment by slowing down, by taking a moment to breathe. Because your body is going to give you the signals. It's going to communicate with you what's happening. And so in this space, when you are in relationship to sensation in your body, you can bring yourself to center, as I like to say, bring yourself to center and take a moment to connect to a higher power, to something that is beyond you. Because we can't do it alone. And I have a strong belief and experience from being in private practice for many years that healing, spontaneous healing, occurs when we choose to focus with intentionality on that part, on that possibility. So the check-in, the slowing down, this type of practice helps us to develop a more intimate relationship with ourselves, which will lead us to trusting ourselves more. And that's a big and important component of connecting to the divine. There's this sense of blind faith, isn't there, when we connect to a higher source, to the invisible. There's a blind faith there, and blind faith has a lot of advantages because we get out of our thinking minds, of our third dimensional bodies, of having to be in relationship with the truth by what we see and feel and taste and touch. There is a higher truth also that is related to what we can call blind faith, or simply faith. Having faith in yourself, starting with your body, listening, developing that intimate relationship with your body and yourself, and then, of course, connecting to the incredible grace that is around us. And you can tap into that grace through nature. Nature is the key to tapping into divine grace, in my experience, because you are a small speck of what we are all made of when you find yourself in nature. There's so much going on in nature all of the time. The wind, the sun, the temperature changing, the changing leaves, the awesomeness of color in nature. So when we are tapped in to nature in that way, we can have an instantaneous relationship with divine grace. There's a possibility to connect. And in those instantaneous moments of connection with divine grace, healing occurs. I just want to check in here and see if this is resonating with you. Does this make sense? Check in, slow down, trust self more, connect to divine, blind faith to get out of thinking minds, have faith in self, tap into divine grace through nature. Insightful share, Anne-Marie. Thank you. I hope that that's responding a little bit to your question about pain in the body and how we can tune into it for higher awareness. Yes, thanks, Mary Beth. I know that you can totally connect with this, Mary Beth, because you are also a healer of a healer in your own way is what I really perceive with your work, and also being in nature and so connected to your environment. Thank you for your comment. Janet says, absolutely, it's just what's going on with me this past month. Thank you. Yeah, awesome. So being able to tap into this deeper grace, this deeper possibility of who we are beyond our physical bodies, and at the same time with our physical body. And being able to connect at this level is especially important when we're dealing with difficult situations in our lives. And we all have difficult situations. We all go through the dark night of the soul. Goodness knows I've had my share of that. And I know for some of you here, you've also been going through rough times this year, the past few years. And yet, in my own experience of healing, to be able to befriend the truth of loss, losing a part of ourselves, recognizing that grief actually is part of our everyday lives. When we realize that grief and pain and loss is part of our everyday lives, this can be a revelatory experience, because we experience multiple losses all of the time. Loss of a friend, loss of dreams, the loss of global economic stability, the loss of a marriage. Grief is ever present, and it's more than an emotion. It's a daily condition that we live with. And I'm sharing this with you right now because this is very real for me right now. There's a tenderness inside of me, around me. I'm grieving because it's very present for me right now. A recent death in my circle of friends has confronted me with my own death, as death will tend to do. And not only death of life, but death of a past gone by. The death of my past. How to live in the presence of grief. To live in the presence of grief as a means toward more aliveness. In the midst of our very, very busy, noisy world, finding moments of peace, moments to connect with grace and kindness, allows me to attune myself to the subtle whispers of divine grace. I can hear the whispers. I can feel the whispers. And whether it's through meditation, prayer, or simply immersing ourselves in nature, silence becomes that very canvas where our pain, our loss, and our grief reflect a passing moment of aliveness. So even though we are experiencing grief, transformation, death, as we are alive, connecting to that is a sign of aliveness within us. So, how do we find the courage? How do we find the courage to feel grief and loss and still connect with the invisible nature of healing? How do we connect with something much greater than ourselves that has the unexplainable potential to grow us in a caring and loving way? Last week, I spoke about spiritual nutrition. And spiritual nutrition, nourishment, becomes a very useful practice that has the power to assist us to get out of that quicksand of pain and confusion. And no matter what your beliefs are, just as there are different rivers flowing into the same ocean, various beliefs can lead us to the same transcendent truth. It doesn't matter. This is not about religion. This is more about coming together from a place of humanitarian connection to connect to one another as humans. That also awakens this sense of connection to divine grace. So when we foster understanding, when we foster compassion, and that sense of unity, the sense of unity amongst ourselves, all of us who seek a connection with the divine, we develop a greater capacity for healing. We grow spiritually, even without necessarily being spiritual. Because being spiritual is not a state of becoming. Being spiritual is simply a deep and heartfelt inner connection that supports us through our pain. That's how I view my spirituality. It's a connection outside of myself, knowing that I belong to a much larger component, energetic circle of vibrational frequency. That's the other truth about working in nature and also with animals, to which Mary Beth can speak to, who's on this call this morning, working with animals and nature, being in nature. So that sense of connection, it's that well-known olive branch, the olive branch of peace that just won't break, but instead extends itself, holding us up for just that moment longer, and then the next moment longer. Because, when we're faced with grief, we need to acknowledge the depth of those emotions. This is why I was talking about befriending before. How do you become more aware? How can you deal with pain in your body? By befriending it, to allow ourselves the time and space to feel the pain, the sadness, and the void, the loss, the confusion. All of these, because it's in the acknowledgement that we open a door to healing, understanding that our emotions are really a testament to the love and connection we share. So as you navigate your challenging emotions, as you navigate your pain, remember that healing is not a linear process. Like everything else in life, we want certainty. We want things to work a certain way. And, can I share with you that one of the ways that has been most helpful to me in wanting for things to be a certain way, for things to expand, is to also befriend uncertainty, impermanence, and change. That's the reality of life. So the more you can befriend your pain, the more you can sit and simply do the exercise that I shared with you this morning to go deeper into your body. I beg you all to slow down. And I beg myself too. Just know that I am also on the path. What I share, what I speak, I practice. I practice every day myself, and I practice with my clients in my body work practice, also in my coaching practice, and my spiritual practice. So this idea to slow down so that we might start to pay attention to what really matters. What really matters? If your body's in pain, that's the priority. That's what really matters right now. Solutions provided. Knowing is critical for that confident grounding, and that is the power of faith and connection. It is in the acknowledgement, powerful. Healing is not a linear process. Nice, yeah. The acknowledgement piece I have found to be really powerful, because the more we get into present awareness and acknowledging what's happening right now, the less we try to fight to fix. This is kind of counterintuitive, but the more you tap in and you sit into present awareness and you feel what is occurring around you, there is less trying to fix and more allowing for healing to enter your body, your soul, your mind, your space. It's very counterintuitive to how most of us have been taught. This is more of a perspective of the feminine energy, to be able to receive as a healing mechanism, as opposed to try to fix. Sabi says, it helps to hear that healing is not a linear process, because sometimes it can become a goal. Yeah, reflecting about it, healing is a journey, 100%. It's not a linear process. We're not always going, sometimes it's going to get worse before it gets better. Have you ever experienced that? You're on a healing journey and it actually gets worse before it gets better. That's the reality of it. Less you fight to fix, more allowing for healing to enter, 100%. So learning to sit back, just as we did in our short practice this morning, learning to sit back and to allow for this energetic grace to enter your space. All we need to do is tap in. It's ever present. It's here. And then if you want to go a little bit further with it, you do a daily meditation, you commit to a daily time of prayer or contemplation or connection, because in the moments of silence and stillness is when grace visits us. This is when divine grace comes into our awareness, where it's possible. It's like Janet, who is here with us today, is a painter. And so Janet paints these extraordinary pieces of art. You can find her, Janet Jacobs, on Facebook and probably on Instagram. She draws these amazing paintings. She's a painter, and so I cannot help but see grace, divine grace into your work, Janet. I can see it. I can see it by how everything flows. And so there is an indication there that perhaps as you are working, you are filled with divine connection. You are filled with inspiration at those moments. And then sometimes, isn't it hard to sit and paint or write or compose or create? Of course, that is the bottom line of impermanence and change. We cannot have certainty at every moment. It's not how it works. How it works is that there is less certainty. Impermanence and change are our friends. To learn to befriend those components as, again, a healing mechanism, to step away from the very linear, I would say, patriarchal perspective of fixing, of moving through it, of not feeling the pain. Which, what I'm suggesting is, the healing process must experience the pain, the uncertainty, the confusion. That's when we really come together. That's when we really are vulnerable in those spaces. And so if we can tap into that vulnerability, right? We've all watched Brené Brown's vulnerability video on TED Talks, right? And so it's one thing to watch it. It's one thing to know it. It's one thing to read it. And now, do we practice? Do we get into a modem operandi of practice? This is what I am inviting you into in this circle. to make it a daily practice of tapping in, so that you might develop a connection with divine grace. So when you wake up, if you're going through a rough time, if you're grieving, if you're in a state of loss, this will happen to all of us at certain times in our lives. How might you be able to heal yourself, to feel divine grace come upon you and assist you in healing yourself through the mechanism of slowing down, of connecting? In the moments of silence and stillness, grace visits us. Yes. Art is pure connection with the divine. Yes, Leanne, I agree. Janet says, yes, there's knowing and wanting, and then there's letting go of all that and allowing it to happen. Isn't that the truth? The allowing it to happen. How many of us struggle with that? I do. I struggle with allowing things to happen sometimes. And the more I practice slowing down, I can change that perspective, that relationship in the moment. If I'm having a hard time, I can pause and just be with the hard time. Because if I allow it to process via my flesh suit, my body, it can traverse, it can process, it can be felt and move through me, as opposed to it staying blocked into a part of my body, which of course creates dis-ease, discomfort. It creates pain, adhesions in our connective tissue. So the breathing is a hydration system to your body. The breathing is a hydration system that helps your connective tissue become more fluid, free, and flexible. So movement naturally comes into play. Gentle, soft, mindful, intentional movement. Sabi says, I agree, Gigi. Art is pure connection with divine indeed. Yes, well, I have musicians and artists and vocalists and other people who draw on this page. So thank you for that insight. Yeah, exactly. We want to be able to be creative. I think creativity is another way to connect with the divine. And so when we have these moments of sorrow, these moments of anger, and these moments of quiet reflection, we get to develop that intimate relationship with ourselves, because healing essentially is that gentle, invisible force that weaves its way through our lives. We become the healer of our lives. It's softly reminding us, even in our darkest moments, there is a glimmer of light. There is a glimmer of hope. But we have to remember to practice self-compassion on our journey, to be gentle with ourselves during those times of vulnerability. Just as a wounded heart needs time to mend, your spirit requires the same care and understanding. So allowing yourself the grace to feel, to mourn, and to gradually open up to the possibilities of renewal. Understanding our thoughts, our emotions, and our actions, this allows us to navigate the complexities of life with grace. Another way to connect to the divine is to just very simply extend our love and compassion to others. When we do so, we embody the divine in our actions. That is the most powerful, to embody divine grace in our actions. So acts of kindness, generosity, and empathy, they all become a sacred dance that connects us not only with the divine within ourselves, but also clearly with the divine that is present in every other being that we encounter. So, what is awakening for me? Why I am choosing to talk about feeding our soul this month is because it's the end of the year. I want to invite you to do a little review for yourself. Sit with yourself, do a little review to see what has worked this year. What has worked with you? What has been something that has brought you joy this year? And then what are other things that might have brought you sadness or grief or loss? And remember that this grief and loss is also a part of the ever-changing impermanence of life. Your grief and loss will pass, and the more you are in conversation with your grief and loss, the more intimate the relationship will become, so that if you feel more grief and loss at another time in your experience of life, you will now have started to embrace that conversation with those emotions. You will now start to embrace that relationship, so that it doesn't become something that you want to push away, but rather that you want to embrace and feel and be with. I think that one of the biggest issues on planet Earth right now, and it's been like this for a long time, and right now it's also significant, that we are not embracing ourselves. We're not connecting with one another. We're too busy trying to be right, to push, to fix, to not feel, to ignore. If you have children who are having a rough time, I work with a lot of young people who are struggling with mental health issues right now, depression, confusion, not knowing which way to go, because there's so much coming at us all of the time. And I tell them what I'm sharing with you today, to essentially slow down, to remove electronics from their lives as much as possible, to start to cultivate and navigate a deeper inner relationship with themselves, their passions, what do they like to do, and to go full out on what brings them energy, life, happiness, joy. And it's a process. It doesn't happen overnight, but it does eventually start to arise, because that is what we cultivate. You will reap what you cultivate, what you plant. You've heard this many times. We reap what we sow. So take a moment this month, do a spiritual review of the past year. Are you someone who has a spiritual practice of some kind, who has a relationship with divine grace? See if you can connect with that and allow for the magic, the healing of that connection to arise in your life, in your experience of everyday life. Healing is that gentle, invisible force that weaves into our lives, gentle with self, understand our thoughts, actions, and emotions. Yes. What has worked and brought you joy? What has brought sadness and loss this year? A review, right? Thank you for writing it for us. I appreciate that. A tool to go along, work with the review on our year. I love to use intentional integration with self and others. Yes. Remove electronics. Yes. Go full out with what brings life and joy. Exactly. So until next week, my friends, and by the way, I am going a little bit deeper with you next week. I hope you'll join me. I'm talking about 3 of the 12 Hermetic universal laws. I'm talking about universal laws next week. And the 3 that I'll be addressing is, first, the law of divine oneness. So I'm maintaining that relationship with feeding our soul, connecting to divine grace, the law of divine oneness, the law of vibration, and the law of correspondence. And that one teaches us about impermanence and change. So I'm going deeper into that topic next week, and I hope that you will be able to join me and take the time. Today is only the 11th of December. You have time to do your yearly review. Sit with what has brought you joy with this year, what has been challenging for you this year, and then find something. When it comes to your spiritual life, to spiritual nourishment, what would you like to develop? in 2024 when it comes to your spiritual life, to your personal healing capacity? How do you want to develop this in your life? Maybe you want to take a course. Maybe you simply want to practice being more mindful. Maybe you want to increase your level of emotional intelligence. Anything that is something that will bring you into the next step, a heightened sense of consciousness, a connection with what is beyond us, and not what's just here, but to really delve and understand that what is beyond us is what assists us in being here. Can't wait for the universal laws. Yes, me too. Thank you, Leanne. Law of divine oneness, vibration, and correspondence next week. Thank you. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. As always, you can reach out to me. Please, if you have not subscribed to my YouTube channel, I invite you to do so. Invite your friends who you think might benefit from these classes, who may want to join us live or watch the videos on my YouTube channel. I invite you to subscribe. I invite you to write to me. You can book a 30-minute complimentary call that I'm still offering this year. I don't know how that's going to go next year, just based on schedules and so forth, but please take advantage of it. If you have any questions, if you'd like to book a coaching session with me to go deeper into your personal connection with divine grace, to learn how to integrate meditation, or if you are going through a difficult time and need additional support, you can reach out to me via my website, artofalignmentacademy.com. Thank you so much, Anne-Marie. Such exciting and beautiful topics. Janet says, I'm very sorry for your loss this month. I send love and patience to you as I receive yours and your wisdom. Thank you, Janet. I appreciate you. Thank you all for being with me today. May you go and be blessed. Have a wonderful day. Make great decisions for yourself. Connect to divine grace and just allow for it to unravel in front of you. Trust the process. Until next week, my friends, I send you love. Bye for now.